Chapter 9, Gobbled Up. On the day when all this was happening, no factories opened anywhere in the world. All offices and schools were closed. Nobody moved away from the television screens, not even for a couple of minutes to get a Coke or to feed the baby. The tension was unbearable. Everybody heard the American president's invitation to the man from Mars to visit him in the White House, and they heard the weird rhyming reply, which sounded rather threatening. They also heard a piercing scream, "Come your speed," and a little later on, there was someone shouting, "Scram, scram, scram, Mr. Wonka." Nobody could make head or tail of the shouting. They took it to be some kind of Martian language, but when the 8 mysterious astronauts suddenly rushed back into their glass capsule and broke away from the space hotel, you could almost hear the great sigh of relief that rose up from the peoples of the earth. Telegrams and messages poured into the White House, congratulating the president upon his brilliant handling of a frightening situation. The president himself remained calm and thoughtful. He sat at his desk, rolling a small piece of wet chewing gum between his finger and thumb. He was waiting for the moment when he could flick it at Miss Tibbs without her seeing him. He flicked it and missed Miss Tibbs, but hit the sheath of the Air Force on the tip of his nose. "Do you think the men from Mars have accepted my invitation to the White House?" the president asked. "Of course they have," said Forgan's secretary. "It was a brilliant speech, sir." "They're probably on their way down here right now," said Miss Tibbs. "Go and wash that nasty, sticky chewing gum off your fingers quickly. They could be here any minute." "Let's have a song first," said the president. "Sing another one about me, Nanny, please." There is a song. "This greedy man of whom I sing, the greatest of them all, was once a teeny little thing, just 18 inches tall. I knew him as a tiny tot. I nursed him on my knee. I used to sit him on the pot and wait for him to wee. I always washed between his toes and cut his little nails. I brushed his hair and wiped his nose and weighed him on the scales. Through happy childhood days he strayed, as all nice children should. I smacked him when he disobeyed and stopped when he was good. It soon began to dawn on me he wasn't very bright, because when he was 23 he couldn't read or write. What shall I do?" his parents sobbed. "The boy has got the vapors. He couldn't even get a job delivering the papers." "Aha," I said, "this little clock could be a politician." "Nanny," cried, "oh Nanny, what a superb proposition." "Okay," I said, "let's learn the art of politics. Let's teach you how to miss the boat and how to drop some bricks, and how to win the people's vote and lots of other tricks. Let's learn to make a speech a day upon the TV screen, in which you never say exactly what you mean. And most important, by the way, is not to let your teeth decay and keep your fingers clean. And now that I am 89, it's too late to repent. The fault was mine, the little swine became the president." "Bravo, Nanny," cried the president, clapping his hands. "Hooray!" shouted others. "Well done, Miss Vice President, ma'am. Brilliant, tremendous." "My goodness," said the president. "Those men from Mars will be here any moment. What on earth are we going to give them for lunch? Where's my chief cook?" The chef cook was a Frenchman. He was also a French spy, and at this moment he was listening at the keyhole of the president's study. "Ici, Monsieur President," he said, bursting in. "Chief cook," said the president, "what do men from Mars eat for lunch?" "Mars bars," said the chief cook. "Baked or boiled?" asked the president. "Oh, baked, of course, Monsieur President. You are ruined. A Mars bar by boiling." The voice of astronaut Shrugsworth cut in over the loudspeaker in the president's study. "Request permission to link up and go aboard Space Hotel," he said. "Permission granted," said the president. "Go right ahead, Shrugsworth. It's all clear now, thanks to me." And so the large transport capsule, plotted by Shrugsworth, Shanks, and Shower, with all the hotel managers and assistant managers and hall porters and pastry chefs and bellboys and waitresses and showermaids on board, moved in smoothly and linked up with the giant space hotel. "Hey there, we've lost our television picture," called the president. "I'm afraid the camera got smashed against the side of the space hotel, Mr. President," Shrugsworth replied. The president said a very rude word in the telephone, and 10 million children across the nation began repeating it gleefully and got smacked by their parents. All astronauts and 150 hotel staff safely aboard Space Hotel, Shrugsworth reported over the radio. "We are now standing in the lobby." "What do you think of it all?" asked the president. He knew the whole world was listening in, and he wanted Shrugsworth to say how wonderful it was. Shrugsworth didn't let him down. "Gee, Mr. President, it's just great," he said. "It's unbelievable. It's so ginormous, and so it's kind of hard to find words to describe it. It's so truly grand, especially the chandeliers and the carpets and all. I have the chief hotel manager, Mr. Walter W. Wall, beside me now. He would like the honor of a word with you, sir." "Put him on," said the president. "Mr. President, sir, this is Walter Wall. What a sumptuous hotel this is. The decorations are superb. Have you noticed that all the carpets are wall to wall, Mr. Walter Wall?" said the president. "I have indeed, Mr. President." "And the wallpaper is all wall to wall too, Mr. Walter Wall?" "Yes, sir, Mr. President. Isn't that something? It's going to be a real pleasure running a beautiful hotel like this. Hey, what's going on over there? Something's coming out of this. Help!" Suddenly, the loudspeaker in the president's study gave out a series of the most ghastly screams and yells. "Aye! Ow! Aye! Help! Help! Help!" "What on earth's going on?" said the president. "Shrugsworth! Are you there, Shrugsworth? Shanks? Shore? Mr. Walter Wall? Where are you? What's happening?" The screams continued. They were so loud the president had to put his fingers in his ears. Every house in the world that had a television or radio receiver heard those awful screams. There were other noises too, loud grunts and snortings and crunching sounds. Then there was silence. Frantically, the president called the space hotel on the radio. Houston called the space hotel. The president called Houston. Houston called the president. Then both of them called the space hotel again. But answer came up there none. Up there in space, all was silence. "Something nasty's happened," said the president. "It's those men from Mars," said the ex-chief of the army. "I told you to let me blow them up." "Silence," snapped the president. "I've got to think." The loudspeaker began to crackle. "Hello," said. "Hello, hello, hello. Are you receiving me? Space Control in Houston." The president grabbed the mic on his desk. "Leave this to me, Houston," he shouted. "President Gilligas here, receiving you loud and clear. Go ahead." "Astronaut Shrugsworth here, Mr. President. Back aboard the transport capsule. Thank heavens." "What happened, Shrugsworth? Who's with you?" We're most of us here, Mr. President, I'm glad to say. Shanks and Shore are with me, and a whole bunch of other folks. I guess we lost maybe a couple of dozen people altogether. Pastry chefs, hall porters, that sort of thing. And it sure was a scramble getting out of that place alive." "What do you mean you lost 2,000 people?" shouted the president. "How did you lose them?" "Gobbled up," replied Shrugsworth. "One glip and that was it. I saw a big 6 feet tall assistant manager being swallowed up just like you'd swallow a lump of ice cream, Mr. President. No chewing, nothing, just down the hatch." "But who?" yelled the president. "What are you talking about? Who did the swallowing?" "Hold it!" cried Shrugsworth. "Oh my lord, here they come now. They're coming after us. They're swarming out of the space hotel. They're coming out in swarms. You have to excuse me a moment, Mr. President. No time to talk right now." Chapter 10. Transport Capsule in Trouble. Attack No. 1. While Shrugsworth, Shanks, and Shower were being chased out of the space hotel by the Nids, Mr. Wonka's great glass elevator was orbiting the Earth at tremendous speed. Mr. Wonka had all his booster rockets firing, and the elevator was reaching speeds of 34,000 miles an hour instead of the normal 17,000. They were trying, you see, to get away from that huge, angry, vicious Ned with the purple behind. Mr. President, Mr. Wonka wasn't afraid of it, but Grandma Josephine was petrified. Every time she looked at it, she let out a piercing scream and clapped her hands over her eyes. But of course 34,000 miles an hour is startling to a Nid. Healthy young Nids think nothing of traveling 1,000,000 miles between lunch and supper, and then another 1,000,000 before breakfast next day. How else could they travel between the planet Worms and the other stars? Mr. Wonka should have known this and saved his rocket power, but he kept right on going, and the giant Nid kept on cruising effortlessly aside, glaring into the elevator with its wicked red eye. You people have bruised my backside, the Nid seemed to be saying, and in the end I'm going to get you for that. They had been streaking around Earth about this for about 45 minutes when Charlie was floating comfortably beside Grandpa Joe near the ceiling. Suddenly, there's something ahead. Can you see it, Grandpa? Straight in front of us. I can't, Charlie, I can't. Good heavens, it's the Space Hotel. It can't be, Grandpa. We left them miles behind us long ago. Aha, said Mr. Wonka. We've been going so fast we've gone all the way around the Earth and caught up with it again. That's a splendid effort. And there's a transport capsule. Can you see it, Grandpa? It's just behind the Space Hotel. And there's something else there too, Charlie, if I'm not mistaken. I know what those are, screamed Grandma Josephine. They're Ramicious Neds. Turn back at once. Reverse, yelled Grandma Georgina. Go the other way. Dear lady, said Mr. Wonka, this isn't a car on the motorway. When you're in orbit, you cannot stop and you cannot go backwards. I don't care about that, shouted Grandma Josephine. Put on the brakes. Stop. Backpedal. The Nids will get us. Now, let's, for heaven's sake, stop this nonsense once and for all, Mr. Wonka said sternly. You know very well my elevator is completely Ned-proof. You have nothing to fear. They were closer now, and they could see the Neds pouring out from the tail of the Space Hotel and swarming around like wasps around the transport capsule. They're attacking it, cried Charlie. They're after the transport capsule. It was a fearsome sight. The huge green egg-shaped Neds were grouping themselves into squadrons with about 20 Neds to a squadron. Then each squadron formed itself into a line abreast, with 1 yard between Neds. Then one after another, the squadrons began attacking the transport capsule. They attacked in reverse with their pointed rear ends in front, and they came in at a fantastic speed. Wham! One squadron attacked, bounced off, and reeled away. Crash! Another squadron smacked against the side of the transport capsule. Get us out of here, you madman! Screamed Grandma Josephine. What are you waiting for? They'll be coming after us next, yelled Grandma Georgina. For heaven's sake, man, turn back! I doubt very much if that capsule of theirs is Ned-proof, said Mr. Wonka. Then we must help them, cried Charlie. We've got to do something. There are 150 people inside that thing. Down on the Earth, in the White House study, the president and his advisors were listening in horror to the voices of the astronauts over the radio. They're coming at us in droves, Schwarzman was shouting. They're bashing us to bits. But who? Yelled the president. You haven't even told us who's attacking you. These dirty, great, brownish-green brutes with red eyes, shouted Shanks, butting in. They're shaped like enormous eggs, and they're coming at us backwards. Backwards? Cried the president. Why backwards? Because their bottoms are even more pointy than their tops, shouted Schwarzman. Look out! Here comes another lot! Bang! We won't be able to stand this much longer, Mr. President. The waitresses are screaming, and the chambermaids are all hysterical, and the bellboys are being sick, and the hall porters are saying their prayers. So what shall we do, Mrs. President? Sir, what on earth shall we do? Fire your rockets, you idiot, and make a re-entry, shouted the president. Come back to Earth immediately. That's impossible, cried Shower. They've busted our rockets. They're smashed in smithereens. We're cooked, Mr. President, shouted Shanks. We're done for. Because even if they don't succeed in destroying the capsule, we'll have to stay up here in orbit for the rest of our lives. We can't make a re-entry without rockets. The president was now sweating, and the sweat ran all the way down the back of his neck and inside his collar. Any moment now, Mr. President, Shanks went on, we're going to lose contact with you altogether. There's another lot coming at us from the left, and they're aiming straight for our radio area. Here they come. I think we'll be able to. The voice cut. The radio was dead. Shanks! Cried the president. Where are you, Shanks? Truxworth! Shanks! Shower! Truxworth! Shank! Shower! Hello? Why don't you answer me? Up in the great glass elevator, where they had no radio and could hear nothing of these conversations, Charlie was saying, surely their only hope is to make a re-entry and dive back to Earth quickly. Yes, said Mr. Wonka, but in order to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, you've got to take yourselves out of orbit. They've got to change course and head downwards, and to do that, they need rockets, but their rocket tubes are all dented and bent. You can see that from here. They're crippled. Why can't we tore them down? Charlie asked. Mr. Wonka jumped. Even though he was floating, he somehow jumped. He was so excited, he shot upwards and hit his head on the ceiling. Then he spun around 3 times in the air and cried, Charlie, that's it! You've got it! We tore them out of orbit! To the buttons, quick! What do we tore them with? Asked Grandpa Joe. And neckties? Don't you worry about a little thing like that, cried Mr. Wonka. My great glass elevator is ready for anything. In we go. Into the breach, dear friends. Into the breach. Stop him! Screamed Grandma Josephine. Be quiet, Josie, said Grandpa Joe. There's someone over there needs a helping hand, and it's our job to give it. If you're frightened, you'd better just close your eyes tight and stick your fingers in your ears.